I can't believe it's been 34 years for me. It doesn't feel like
Oh,
it,
I get
man.
it. No, I get it. Loud and clear.
Yeah.
Uh, Loud and clear. So, we're not getting any younger.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. So, welcome to day 3 of Next Level Career Growth. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the homework, etc., from last night. Your key accomplishments and your ideal job situation. And then tonight, we're going to speak about how do we get these new credentials once you have them out in front of as many of the right people as possible. And for the extroverts, this is going to be a lot of fun. For the introverts, this is torture. Okay, so um, and if you can identify yourself as one or the other, that would be great. I think I have three E's on the call here right now, but there are a few who have been on in the last couple nights who wouldn't fall into that category. There are no right or wrong answers about what your personality traits are, but extroverts are made for this kind of stuff. So let's move forward. All right. Again, power moves network smarter and land faster. I'm going to immediately debunk some of the ways that you may have been going about job search, maybe not this time, but in the past, and we'll talk about that going forward. Um, and Lilia, welcome. She should be showing up here.
Hello.
Should be showing up here. Welcome this evening. Okay, and John, I see you. I'm not sure if you're hearing us. You're on mute and also off video.
I'm here. I hear you.
You're good. Okay, great. All I need to know, just making sure. Okay, so review of day 2 accomplishments. Anybody want to speak to an accomplishment or two that they came up with as you were going through that exercise last night? And I know you all have them.
Hey,
Anybody,
this
Jeff?
is yeah, this is
Yep.
Jeff. I was trying to I was trying to unmute there. Apologies.
That's no
Um,
problem.
and unfortunately, my laptop is in use by my wife. I created a spreadsheet with the car acronym and basically did three. And unfortunately, I don't have my spreadsheet with me because it's on my other laptop. But I can walk through and kind of give you the gist of one or two of them. So one I had was the circumstance was a key client that we had
Hmm.
that was one of our top 5 clients who had been with us for about 20 plus years, decided to put our contract out for renewal.
Hmm.
And so it was a surprise and a shock, but we went through the process. We got creative in our renewal strategy and provided them with a tiered, basically a volume discount, tiered discounting structure if they renewed with us.
Okay.
And as a result, so that was the action. And then the result was we actually renewed the contract. It was $108 million TCV over a 3-year term. And major success for the company to protect that revenue and keep that revenue.
Was this with your most recent position or the one before that?
That was before that. That was with
Okay.
Palmer. Yep.
Either way, you get an A for that day and an A for this day, being able to say that accomplishment in the way you did, because that's exactly what you need to be doing, not just for the document of a resume or in part of your LinkedIn profile, but the way you delivered that as part of an interview question or an interview explanation for somebody who sees that line on your resume. That's exactly what you're looking for. You were about 23, 25 seconds for the delivery of that. 20 to 30 is usually the right answer to describe something. And then, and I'm getting ahead of myself, we'll be doing this tomorrow night. And then you want to say, would you like more detail? And a lot of times, and don't take this the wrong way, Jeff, but a lot of times like techies, engineers, and I am one, I can say this, um, your manufacturing, IT, R&D, et cetera, will want to get into the weeds right away.
Yeah.
And the answer is do not frame the answer and frame it in a way that your mother could understand what you're talking about, which you did.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yep.
And when you do that, and then you quote unquote ask permission to provide more detail, then you've created a dialogue. Then it's not just you're sitting there under a 60-watt light bulb, having the interview happen. Okay.
Right.
So again, what you did to gain that $108 million contract was great. And the way you just delivered it was equally as good. So
Great.
all good. Um, Anybody else? Mike, John, Melody.
Bill, I'll volunteer,
Yeah,
but
go ahead.
quick disclaimer, I didn't do it, but I'm gonna wing it. I'm just gonna come up with one off the top of my head.
Okay.
Um, and my presentation probably won't be smooth. Again, it's been a long day, but I'll just give it a shot to participate. Thank you.
Okay.
Again, this is going to be it's not going to sound smooth, but healthcare facility, quick, fast-paced project, and I discovered that the drawings were not matching and were not coordinated.
Mm-hmm.
And I was asking for more information and getting a lot of pushback from the PM that I was holding the job back. I got a call from the principal. He threatened me with legal action as a
Oh,
subcontractor. I presented my case. He stopped cold in his tracks, told me he'd call me back in 2 minutes, call me back in 5 minutes, asked me another question. I answered it. He told me he'd call me back in 3 minutes. He called me back again, and he said, we need to have a meeting. And the job eventually took another 4 years to finish because
wow.
of design issues.
Okay.
Again, forgive the presentation. I'm winging it totally and I'm like exhausted, but my actions were picking up on really poorly designed, coordinated drawings for a
Mm-hmm.
healthcare facility, not for a
Oh,
big
sure. No,
family
no, no, I
house.
understand. No, I
Yeah.
understand. Yeah, right.
Um, my actions were trying to solve it. And then when I was getting pushback that I was delaying the project, addressing it. And the results are that the project was completed the right way, for lack of a better
Okay.
phrase.
So two things. Number one, I get it that you were kind of like pulling this out of your backside, impromptu.
Yeah.
But notice the difference, even though Jeff wasn't looking at his accomplishment, the fact that he had written it down, got it out of his head onto some document makes the whole process of communicating what you want to say easier. All right. I am sure that given the scope and the type of facility that you're talking about, that this was a huge impact on your company and on their company, on the client company. So what you and I would be doing is we would wrestle with what the circumstances, actions, and results are and sequence them so that it comes out in a way. And again, I got your caveat up front. Okay,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
got your
No,
caveat,
no. Yeah.
but the goal with the resume development exercise is such that every word on there is meaningful. And also, it provides you with the springboard to have a very productive interview. Because if your interviewer has reviewed enough of your resume, you're already in the door because they like what they see. And then when you show that you can communicate not just in writing or online, but interpersonally and communicate in a way that as business people typically do, is give me the headline, give me the details afterwards, and then what are we going to do about it if there's something that needs to happen because of what it is that you've said. So all of this goes into, this is all the recipe for successful job search. All right. So anybody else want to volunteer an accomplishment? And I promise you that my picking on you will be gentle.
I guess I'll go.
Yeah, go ahead.
I guess mine would be having a position as a board member for
Hmm.
Lucha Dimes.
Okay.
It was my responsibility to plan events, get donations, bring new lights to the table on working with community. Um, let's see. It kind of fell apart when my son was diagnosed with a terminal illness.
Hold
Me
on
and
right there. Hold on right there.
okay,
Because if you're talking about your accomplishment, using the
so
words fell apart
yeah,
aren't going to get you where you want to go. Okay.
definitely.
Unless you say it was falling apart and I intervened in a way that rescued it, that's a different story. Okay.
Okay.
And I know I cut you off right in the middle of it, but that's one of those things that's like red flag,
Yeah.
okay.
I just
Because
didn't know how to say it any other way in this context.
that's all right. It's okay for now. This
Mhm.
is the practice field. Okay. This isn't game time, as they say. All right. So what ended up happening? What was the outcome of your participation on the March of Dimes board and given the circumstance with your son?
Um, on the board itself, we accomplished great things. I don't have figures or stats, anything like that. But we made a positive impact on our community and raised several thousands of dollars
Okay.
to donate to the March of Dimes.
Okay, which is great. Now, if you and I are working together, I'm going to scrape every possible, turn over every stone and scrape every document that you may have access to so that we can quantify your input related to that. And, I know I've been part of many fundraisers. I've been both as a participant and as an organizer. And I can tell you that the work that goes into it is nothing compared to what the outcome ends up being if you do it right.
Hmm.
Okay. Or if you do it in a way that's successful, that's probably the best way to say it. Um, I could go into a bunch of stories, but it's not worth it. The goal here is though, anytime that you can quantify what your result is or what your contributions were,
Hmm.
that's going to have much more impact. And it could be dollars, it could be percentages improved, it could be cost savings in terms of person hours, it could be efficiencies, and it could be solving big problems, preventing big problems in whatever way that might mean. Okay,
Hmm.
so again, this is the very detailed exercise that those clients who have worked with me will tell you I'm kind of a pain in the ass about it. But if I'm not at that stage, the rest of everything as it relates to your job search program
Hmm.
doesn't have as solid a foundation as it could. So again, I'm looking to turn over every stone to make sure that your contributions, both in professional, for-profit, volunteer, nonprofit, or even other things like church activities or other volunteer situations where you've had leadership responsibilities, all of that bubbles up to the surface. And then I am a very good editor, like get the red pen out and make sure that we communicate what the line says. And I'll show you a little bit about that, later on. Um,
Okay.
and that'll be tomorrow night. Actually, we'll have kind of a funny story about that, but we'll get to that tomorrow night. So, all right. So we've covered enough of day two accomplishments. Leah, if you want to volunteer, one of yours, welcome, by the way. Um,
Thank
we
you.
we just went
Hi,
through
everyone.
we just went through three accomplishments with Jeff, Mike, and Melody. If there's one that you want to share while we're on this topic from last night, please feel free.
Okay, well, I noticed that I've been at my job for 11 years, and the most significant accomplishment in terms of sales, like quantifiable sales, I was shocked because today I looked through all my sales from year to year, and it was like the first year or two that they started tracking my sales, I had the most significant growth. And I've been stagnated since then.
Uh-huh.
And I was thinking, what the hell?
Yeah, no, this is very common. Unfortunately, what you're saying is extremely common, and people, especially owners of small companies, will take you for granted and say, "Ah, there's Leah. She's doing okay. I don't need to mess with her. I need to deal with other things." And they literally will just take you for granted in terms of positions, responsibilities, and compensation, either through flat salary or bonus or other incentives. And it's exercises like this that I've taken dozens, if not hundreds of people through, and they look at it and say, wow, I've been underpaid for X number of years. Marsden was saying the same thing on Monday night. So what you just described to me is not uncommon. It's a real eye opener though, because it says, hey, wait a minute. I don't have to put up with this because if I can properly communicate my value to somebody else who wants to pay me 25, 50% more, and tomorrow night you'll meet somebody who falls into that category, I'm going to do it. Okay. And this is a whole momentum building exercise because I can't tell you how many clients that I've worked with after we finish their resume and Lynn mentioned this last night where they're like, hey, wait a minute, they got a whole new wave of confidence and self-assuredness that they may not have had before because they're saying it's in black and white. This is what I did. This is how it impacted the organizations that I worked for. Okay, so although you may have gotten annoyed when you saw those numbers because you didn't realize it until you looked, that is the first major step toward enough is enough type of a moment. Like, let's say if they're not going to pay me any more than what I'm making right now, when I've added this much value to the company, I know I'm worth this much more going somewhere else. Again, that's a longer conversation, but
Yeah, I get it.
the
But
the
I
day
found,
the information that you just uncovered is really important.
yeah, and I also found that it was more gratifying for me, the accomplishments that I noticed when I was a volunteer, or
Hmm.
like even in my college internship, right, was
Hmm.
more gratifying to me than my livelihood. And the same with like I was part of a business roundtable, and that to me was more fulfilling, though I wasn't getting paid for it. I was paying to be a member of that business roundtable.
Hmm.
And the leadership role that I took in that roundtable was more gratifying than the 11 years where I've been sitting my butt all day long. So
Okay.
it just, it was nice to have the exercise and to be reminded of the things that really lit me up at one time where I find I'm not lit up anymore.
Okay. Well, these fall under the heading of notes to self.
Yeah.
Okay. And this goes for everybody because I'm sure that each of you, and I know I have, believe me, in the number of large, medium, and small size corporations that I've worked for, when I'm saying, boy, this is just not equitable. And we go from there. All right. So I'm going to leave accomplishments. Anybody want to speak to what their ideal job situation might look like based on the template that I gave you last night? If not, we can go forward, but that's also a critical part of making sure that the next phases of your search process go effectively.
Well,
I'm,
not far as a description, but I definitely know I would like to be like a hybrid situation. And I don't know how realistic that is anymore when everybody has to be report to work. But I also have elderly folks, and it would mean the world to me to be able to set myself up at their office, an office in their facility, at their home, at their workplace, and be able to work there. So in case they needed something, I would be there for them.
Right,
Um,
understood. One of the things I noticed very quickly about COVID, as tragic as it was for so many people, or there were two things, particularly related to the workforce. Number one, it became very obvious pretty quickly who was actually working and who wasn't, whether they were in the office or out. It also became very obvious that if you couldn't work remotely, it wasn't going to work. All right. Now, there are certain situations, I mean, obviously the federal government is one of them, where they're saying come back into the office, come back to work. But if you've been with a company long enough or you establish yourself in a certain situation, I have found that you can work remotely 2 or 3 days a week. You may have to go into the office a day or two. And most people actually like that. I mean, most people don't like working remote all the time.
right.
My daughter's a really good example. I mean, she's on the phone and Zoom calls with people pretty much all day. She works in human resources, but she gets a little stir crazy, just her and her 3 dogs. Her husband's away at work and she's at home. So this is one of those things as part of, and this will be tomorrow night, Leah, when we go through negotiations. These are the kind of things that as you establish yourself and an offer starts coming your way, these are the negotiating points that you want to have front and center and be ready to speak about them. And again, that'll be all tomorrow night. So further on tonight, for the rest of this evening, we're going to talk about creating an outreach strategy. Um, who and what are your targets? Meaning who the types of people, what being the types of industries and organizations, and what types of positions. And then how do you reach them? How do you get in front of them most effectively? I'll give you some really solid um, pieces of advice along those lines. The one piece of advice that I will give you that's probably the strongest thing I'll say all week is do not apply online blindly. because response rates are about 0.5%, and they can be as high as 2% if you're in a very high demand role. But it is not worth it because you get lost in the ether. And if you go on LinkedIn or Indeed or Monster.com and any of the job boards, the ladders used to be a pretty good one. If you go on there and you just blindly apply and you see how many applications come in, if you go on a LinkedIn job application or whatever, you can see in 2 days, you can see 50, 100, 500 people have applied. You're going to get lost in the shuffle. There's no way that they can filter through all of those applications, even with the applicant tracking systems and the bots that they have. I mean, those help, but they're not geared toward helping you. Okay, so developing a clear approach about how to find the right companies and the right people, and then networking among those that you know can help with your job search. We'll go into that in more detail, and then getting and keeping organized. Okay, so to use my somewhat now trite baseball field analogy, we are rounding first and headed into second related to outreach and networking. And this is just a little, what's the right way to say this? Perspective. This is dated, okay, because there are only 7 billion people in the world, but the percentages are still pretty much the same. There are about 25, almost 25% of the workforce, of people actually not in the workforce or not, because there's almost 2 billion that are not yet in the workforce. There are 25% who work in the service industry, and service is a bunch of different applications. There are 400 million entrepreneurs around the world, which I thought was a huge number. I didn't realize it would be that high, but that includes like restaurant owners and hairdressing salons and all this other kind of stuff. 430 million people unemployed, 577 older than 64, 800 million work in industrial jobs. I'm not your guy if you're a factory worker. I mean, I can put a resume together for you. I've done it a couple times, but I'm much more effective with people who have professional careers, either in nonprofit, education, for-profit, or government. And there are still a huge number of people that work in agriculture. Again, this is around the world. This is not just here in the US, obviously. And then you have the age breakdowns. I fall into the baby boomer segment. The Gen X, I think, probably has the best, what's the right way to say this, combination of skill sets, which you're looking at above, and then millennials. Um, Executive presence, generating revenue, adaptability, cost effectiveness, all this kind of stuff. I only put this in here because that is the perception that most people have if you fall into one of these age-related categories. It isn't always the case. I know some unbelievably tech-savvy people who are my age. I am not one of them. I mean, I'm okay, but I'm not, tech-savvy. My kids are better than I am. So again, this is just kind of let's just step back and see what we're looking at as we talk about the workplace. Now, marketing and sales in outreach and networking, and this is, like it or not, everything about job search or career search is a marketing and sales exercise. If we've done the marketing right with your resume and your LinkedIn profile, now it becomes a sales exercise. It's kind of a cold/warm call to get the introduction, and then there's a sales closing aspect of it, which we'll go into in much more detail tomorrow night, which is part of the interviewing and negotiating process. How are you getting your credentials in front of all of these right people? Most important, hiring managers, although recruiters can be certainly your best advocates when there's a position that fits you and they know you're a good fit for it. Networking groups, nonprofit associations, social media groups. There are some tremendous groups on LinkedIn. Even on Facebook, there's some decent groups, but LinkedIn has some tremendous groups. Alumni associations have become much more powerful in terms of their ability to connect people who have similar professions and backgrounds. Trade associations, and I highlight this in capital letters. I'm going to guess that each of you has, if not LinkedIn connections, cell phone contacts. I have like over 4,500 in my cell phone. I don't know how many I have in my email list, but it's quite a few. And several of you received emails from me in the last week and a half related to what we're doing now. Those in your network are probably the most important to get things off the ground. And we'll get into that here in a few minutes. Okay, is the geography, or is it in the right geography where you're looking for a role, or why is or are the roles you're looking for a good fit? And this is where your resume and your positioning are really important. There was a New York Times article that came out in 2018. They interviewed 147 respondents over a week period. And what they had them do was they had them write down what they were doing in 10-minute intervals from the time they woke up to the time they went to bed. And it was an amazing study, and I wish I could copy, I've never figured out a way to copy the article into one of these presentations, but the short of it is this. Most people spend about an hour and a half a day on job search for a couple of reasons. Number one, they were taking care of life events that they never could do when they were working. Number two, they didn't know what they should be doing, so they just kind of spun their wheels and they weren't really actively doing things that would help find them the type of position they're looking for. And number three, they got distracted. Okay. Now, this is before COVID. Okay. This is before you had to start working from home. So this may be different today, but the answer about why was just my suspicion is that they missed the why. The why was that either the motivation wasn't there for a particular position, so they didn't know what their destinations were, or they didn't know what they should be doing on a moment-to-moment basis, which is why they would end up doing something else because they'd feel comfortable doing that. Either way, as part of your proper time allocation, let's just say I tell people to do job search 30 hours a week. And the reason I say 30 and not 40 or 50 is it wears you out. And I don't mean that you don't have the ability to do 40 or 50, but you're running potentially a longer race than you might think. It's not a sprint, and you don't want to get burned out. Once you get momentum, you want to keep going. But here's where I'm going in terms of how to allocate your time. Realize that only 20 or 25% of jobs are found with posted ads. And this goes all the way back to when the posted ads used to be the New York Times classified section every Sunday. All right. Job boards today are literally like Grand Central Station at rush hour. Okay. These boards, I mean, they'll take hundreds and thousands of applicants for one position in a day or two. Hiring companies are swamped, and I've been on the other side of this as a consultant. I worked with a couple of companies where I was the person responsible for finding open positions or people for open positions. And I used to see probably 2/3 of the resumes I saw, they weren't even remotely qualified. They just send them in and they didn't care. The biggest thing as it relates to you as a candidate is this. It's only a half to a 1%, which is somewhere between 1 out of 100 and 1 out of 200. You can buy a lottery ticket, oftentimes do better than that, right? So recruiters handle 5 to 10% of placements. Sometimes they're looking for temp positions, sometimes they're looking for full-time. And the other 70 to 80% are due to the networking capabilities of you as a candidate, a hiring manager or company, or people in the middle of those conversations. So what we're going to focus on here tonight are the 70 to 80% where your time allocation will be most efficiently used. Even though it might seem slower, even though you might say, I just applied for this job, I sent it in, I got all the right information in about me, but the odds of you being seen are relatively small. So overcoming barriers in terms of getting organized with this is to develop clear target lists. I'm going to go through that in a minute. Reach out to former associates. Those could be former bosses, colleagues, clients, vendors, or other people who are associated with your former places of employment. And you're going to ask for advice and not help. And I'll go into the script on that here shortly. As far as finding target organizations, I started doing this work in New Jersey and was there until the spring of 2021. There's a really good website called jerseyclicks.org. It has 17 million companies in it. There's another one that I found recently called onet.org, and it's very similar to Dun & Bradstreet. It doesn't have as much of the financial info in there, and it's also similar to Moody's. But I've also found recently that ChatGPT is almost as good as these first two. So if you say to yourself, I'd like to know all the food manufacturing companies within 30 miles of Parsippany, New Jersey, or of Dallas, Fort Worth, you can find them. All right. And you also probably want to find them based on the size of the company and the revenues. And you can put that in there as part of your criteria. So I recommend to everybody that I work with to create a target summary sheet. And I'm going to show you this in a minute that includes the functional area of expertise that you have, the level or title that you want to come in at, the geography you're interested in, the specific industries, and then any other miscellaneous items that are relevant to your life. And I mean, like, for instance, like Leah, you mentioned you're taking care of elderly parents, whether they're living with you or not, I don't know, but you need to have access to them. You're not going to move 500 miles away at this point. Okay, so those are the things people need to know. And you use this as an opener with your networking contacts. And I'll show you, this is a live example of somebody that I worked with a few years ago. I didn't put specific companies on there, but the person wanted to be in business development, program management, and this was kind of, I had to tighten her focus up after she sent this to me, but she was qualified to be an assistant manager in some industries and qualified to be a senior manager in other industries. Okay, so hers was a difficult situation that we eventually navigated through. But functional area is up here, level or title, industries, and then specific companies or organizations. And this is a template that when we work together, I send you that, we fill it out, and we modify it. It's not a static document. It can change as you're moving forward. Your outreach list, and this is going to be part of your homework tonight. Make a list of 10 to 25, and I say 10, like 10 means your A list, and then 15 more of people that you feel could help with your search. Again, bosses, former bosses, colleagues, vendors, customers, committee members, clients, etc., and others who might provide relevant advice and introductions. And these could be, I mean, you know people from everywhere. And where you want to focus are people that know you reasonably well. They don't have to know you extremely well. They may not have even had to work with you at certain points in the past, but they know you and your reputation. They know your professional background, or at least you'll familiarize them with it. And these are all the different places where you can find them. I can't tell you how many times when I've worked with recent college graduates, when I say, parents of parents' friends. And they're like, what? I'm like, if you know somebody who's in similar field that you want to be in, you can't find anybody better than the parents, friends type of thing. Anyway, um, neighbors, social acquaintances, church, temple, mosque groups, etc. Doctor, dentist, lawyer, accountant. I mean, all these people are live. They usually are in the second tier, but I want you to start with 10 A-listers if that makes sense. All right, now, and here's the approach. And I'm going to act like I'm calling Mike here. Hey, Mike, you and I have known each other for a long time. I've always respected your opinions and your perspective on a lot of issues. It would be great to hear your advice about a number of career options I'm considering. Would you have time for a Zoom call or coffee later this week? The key word here, and it's underlined and in bold, is advice. If you ask for help, you're going to get the big red X. You're going to get people saying, I don't know how I'm going to help this guy. I'm not sure what I'm going to do. If you ask for advice, two things happen. Number one, you put that person on a pedestal. And then you also tell them that their commitment, if you will, to your job search will be over after they give you the advice. If you ask for help, they don't know what that means, right? So again, ask for advice. Great to hear your advice about a number of career options that I'm considering. I can't tell you how much of a door opener that one line can be.
It's awesome.
Yeah. Okay. Other things related to networking, and I'll call them obstacles, but they're just things you need to notice that you may or may not run into with yourself individually. First off, the attitude of always be positive happens with anybody you interact with. And I would say this any time in life, but particularly when you're in transition or in job search. You never know whose admin assistant that you wait on the phone with for a minute and a half before the person that you really want to speak to. Treating that individual properly can go a long way, because there are, and I know hiring managers who say this, they will vet through every one of the candidates and then they will ask their assistant, how did this person interact with you? Because particularly like in a business development role or something similar, you might be in a situation where you have to interact with, you know, virtual assistants or live assistants, whatever it might be. And if you don't do that properly, you're not going to even get in the door. Okay. So again, just be really careful about how it is that you present yourself to everybody that you interact with. Some people like to pre-qualify those in your network. The thing that I always say to people is this: you don't know who they know. You know them, but you don't know who they know. And who they know is more important than you knowing them, if that makes sense. Okay. And you'll see as we go forward. Some people get caught up in pride. Boy, do I ask somebody for advice? I didn't know I was going to get laid off. I'm kind of embarrassed. Just put all that aside. Okay, put all that aside. People are generally very willing to provide support. Okay, and notice I'm using the word support and not help. A pedestal for you or for them. You may say, well, my next door neighbor is the CEO at a company down, whatever, and he's responsible for $1.5 billion in revenue a year. How could I speak with that guy or that woman? Well, if you're neighbors, you're already on equal footing. Okay, just for what it's worth. So don't worry about the pedestal. And again, you never know who knows who. Is your organization and your discipline about reaching out to 5, 10, 15 people a day? Is that in place? And there are a lot of people I find that go through the momentum swings of job search, and they're completely understandable, believe me. Is there any hesitation about what's holding you back, or hesitation that leads to procrastination? You would be amazed that if you call somebody that you worked with 10 years ago, how likely they will be glad to hear from you.
Hmm.
All right. So keep that in mind. Unless you completely pissed them off and there's something that there was just never going to be able to overcome. That's usually not the case. Okay, now I'm going to switch gears a little bit and talk about recruiters. I've been placed by recruiters 5 times in my career. They have no interest in me today, which is fine. But at the time, recruiters were my biggest asset. I took a position when I lived in New Jersey, took a position as a senior marketing manager with Del Monte Fruit. I was commuting 5 days a week back and forth to downtown San Francisco. I would stay out there for the week and then come back on the weekends.
Wow.
A recruiter placed me out there, and the job was really good, but then 9/11 happened, and my family wasn't going to move. So I went into my boss on I think the 20th of September, and I said, "Hey, it's not going to work." So and I called the recruiter as well, and turns out that he had another position in New Jersey that I interviewed for, and within 6 weeks after I got back to New Jersey, that recruiter placed me twice within 2 years. All right, so they can be huge advocates in terms of your candidacy, but you have to treat them right. There's no other way to say it, and you have to have the credentials, obviously, but you have to treat them right as well. Um, Contingency search means that the recruiter is paid only when they fill the position. I have found that contingency recruiters will sell you a bill of goods. Sometimes you got to be really careful, as opposed to a retained search firm or a search individual. They are usually paid in 3 milestones: at the start of the agreement, after 2 or 3 months, or when 3 to 5 candidates are quote unquote approved, when they submit viable candidates, and then when the search is completed. Sometimes they usually give it 60 days to make sure that the candidate has been placed and is all that. Either way, a retained search firm is my personal preference. I've worked with both. And the reason is they have no reason to give you anything other than the straight story, because they're going to get paid anyway. They often will be able to negotiate for you in ways that you might not be able to do on your own. And they're also in a situation where they know the parent company or their client way better than a contingency search firm might. Usually these are 100K and above. I would say that number is really closer to 150K and above today. But what I mentioned to people, or what I recommend with people, is get a list of 5 to 10 recruiters early on in your job search, and then make sure that you connect with them up front, and then reconnect with them every month or two after that, depending on what the conversations are like. Because again, they can be your biggest advocate or your biggest annoyance. If they ghost you, don't worry about it. It's just they get too many calls and too many emails in a day. If they don't have any updated information, they won't be able to get back to you. This is the recruiter search process. I mean, it sounds pretty straightforward, but sometimes it gets stuck. The longest time that I've ever seen between a job opening and it being filled was 15 months. And what happened was the company froze it at about the 4 month mark, and then they opened it back up again. Somebody they interviewed in the first 4 months ended up being hired at the 15th month. It was the craziest thing that I'd ever seen, but it worked. And it was at VP level as well. So they meet with a client, they develop a strategy and a search plan. Their biggest approach, and I've worked with a number of recruiters who say this recently, have said this, they'll get on LinkedIn with 10 keyword phrases, 12, whatever the number might be. And if you have those keyword phrases in your profile, you're a hit, and they'll reach out to you directly. And one of the guys that I just worked with, and Jeff, I think you know who I'm talking about, a recent college grad, he'll actually graduate in December. Once we picked up his LinkedIn profile and really embellished it, he was getting 3 to 5 hits a week, and he finally found I say finally, he found his position during a summer internship, and he's going to accept it and start in January, even though he doesn't graduate till December, all because his LinkedIn profile was set up so that people found him. And that's something that will, again, this is kind of a hybrid thing, the outreach and the attraction approach to LinkedIn. It's basically your free online website. So they contact and evaluate possible candidates. They check the references, then they present the candidates, and then sometimes the companies say we don't like any of these five, and they ask the recruiter to go back and find 3 to 5 more, and it happens. And they follow up with the client and candidate after the hire to make sure everything is going okay. None of this should be a major surprise, but just laying it out as a process, give you a little idea from a timing standpoint how things will work. Okay, optimum results from recruiter. Be clear about what you're looking for and align your skills as best you can with their needs. Treat them professionally even when they just ignore you. It's just part of the game. There's no other way to say it. It's okay to follow up. My recommendation is until they say stop or no. Okay, and especially if you've interviewed with a company, it's okay to follow up with them every week or so and see where things are and find out what other information the company may be lacking, or they may, how they're going about their decision-making process. Okay. The one reason why recruiters can be really helpful is because they have inside information. Typically, they have more inside information than if you're just meeting a hiring manager, quote unquote, on the street. They know what the ideal candidate is. They know why somebody's hiring. They know profiles of each of the people that'll interview you more than what their LinkedIn profile might look like. They know the salary range. They know the length of time the position's been open and details about the organization. So somebody who has that information can be, again, extremely valuable. It can be your biggest advocate. I'm going to switch gears again. I've seen this happen. It's called created opportunities, and it's more common than you might think. And here's why. About 7 years ago, I had a guy working with a guy who had a background in manufacturing, operations, and logistics. And there was a company who was relocating who needed a director or above for all three. And they were planning to pay $150,000 for each of the three positions. And those positions were going to report to the COO. Because this guy had experience in all three, he said, look, I'll handle all three of these for you. Pay me 200. I'll find 2 people that work for me at 100, and we'll get the job done. So they saved the company, or he saved the company $50,000 in terms of salary, and he came in at under the COO at a higher level than he would have if he had taken one of the 3 positions. So he created the opportunity all on his own, just because he was observant about what they needed. So it's all about the needs of the organizations and the problems that they have. Your solutions are what they're looking for, whether you're a consultant, on staff, or part of a team. Other things that will indicate that there are opportunities out there that may not be posted, and this is what you want to do. You want to find some of these opportunities before they're posted, because it's a feeding frenzy after they are out there, online particularly. There's a relocation. There have been promotions in the organization, expansions, new offices, leases, etc. They've acquired or merged with another company, or they've split off. Sometimes when they split off, a lot of the people will decide they want to go away. Private equity and capital offerings can also indicate that there's opportunities for you. And if you keep your eyes on various trade associations or just the press in general, particularly Wall Street Journal in on a national level, but on a local level, if you're close enough to some of these circumstances, you may be able to find this out and create your own opportunity. New products, industry trends, or trouble products. You may be able to come in and save that whole product line because you know what you're doing in a particular industry, and you can tell that they don't. This is an outreach email that I promise you works. Even though it's ridiculously simple and a little bit presumptuous, it does work. One client I had down in South New Jersey, this is going back probably 6 years now. She had a situation where she had to be 15 minutes max from a location where her mother was. So she found all the companies within a 15-minute radius of where her mother lived, and said this: having selected your company as a potential employer as a result of your dominant position in the market, or there were other good reasons that were appropriate for she figured out what those were for each of them. I'm requesting a few minutes of your time. If granted this request, I'm confident you'll find it to be productive for any upcoming projects or initiatives. And she reworded it a little bit, but this is it. And she attached her resume. She sent 60 of these out and had 2 offers within 3 weeks. Okay. Regular U.S. mail, despite the fact that the post office isn't that great about delivering them, you have to deal with it. Like you can ignore an email, but somehow you deal with paper, and it could be even a UPS. Not it doesn't have to be overnight. Okay, you just spend your $5 on UPS or get a certified mail that it actually got delivered to the right person, and all this kind of stuff. If you do your homework and you send a letter like this, and there are other ones that I use, I have a half a dozen cover letters that I use where you know something about the organization, you know a lot about the organization, or you know that your skill sets fit. And again, it's all a matter of making it so that it's viable and impactful as somebody reads it. Okay, so another outreach mantra that I love, this guy named Jim Cathcart, who you may or may not be familiar with him, become the person who would attract the results you seek. And that comes under the heading of always be positive related to your search. Now, I'm going to go back to this and say, what is your moment when enough is enough? And Leah, you just brought one up earlier in the conversation where you realized how much you've contributed to this company over 11 years and how relatively little you've been compensated or rewarded for it. I've had several of these moments in my lifetime. Enough is enough moments. I work with a business coach who said it was 9 years ago that she was on food stamps. She was working 3 jobs and still struggling to pay the bills. And she was in line at a grocery store, bought all of the stuff and had it rung up, but she didn't have enough money to pay for it. So she had to pull stuff out of the grocery bag after it was already full. She said that was the moment that I knew. She said, I am going to make this business that I'm doing work. And whatever those moments are, and that'll be part of your homework here tonight or tomorrow night, I forget. But the enough is enough moment that says that's the motivator that keeps you going through the difficult times that go up and down related to job and career search. Okay, so if there are moments you'd like to talk about offline, you can, I mean, I can put this in the chat as well. You can either take a screenshot of this and use the QR code or calendly.com and my name and the number 7. And we can have this, I'll put this in the chat here just to make your lives easier. If I can figure out how to get the chat back up again, hold on. And this is the,
How do you screenshot? I can do it with my phone, but how do you do it with your computer?
it depends on your device, but the phone is probably the easiest way to do it, particularly with a QR code. So, but yeah, if you want to just copy that
Yep.
out of the chat, that may be easier to do than do the screenshot either way. Now let's go back to this.
Do you have a
Okay.
Mac, Leah?
I have a PC. I have a laptop. Yeah, it's a Dell. Yeah.
Anybody who can help her with that
I think it's window. I think you hit the window, press the window key and the S as in screen. And I think that'll bring up a little crosshair, and then you can select the area you want to screen capture.
Okay.
You,
It brought up something.
you could do that with the snipping tool, or if there's a print screen button. I don't know what your keyboard looks like, but some have a print screen button. If you do that, then you can just paste it. Or you can just do the snipping tool.
Yep, there's a snipping tool.
Yeah, you can probably just copy it that way.
Okay, thanks.
You got it.
All good. All good. Okay. So, so homework for, by the way, questions about anything I've talked about up to this point. They may come up. If they do, you can send me a text or whatever it might be. But here's your homework for tonight. It is to make a list of 25 or more people who can support your job search. And I use the word instrumental here because you never know who knows who. My usual rule of thumb is that somewhere between 2 and 4 out of 10 people will be valuable for your search. You just don't know which 2 to 4 out of the 10 it might be. And valuable means this: they're willing to introduce you to others in the industry or in the companies that they work with, number 1, or number 2, they have something directly going on that they can refer you to inside their own department or inside their own company. It's again 2 to 4 out of 10. The others may or may not be, and you'll know in about 15 minutes going through the process that I was just telling you earlier. All right, so 25 people. And I know I talked about VIP a couple times, but if you're interested in lifetime recordings, a bonus one-on-one call at the end of this, or and a copy of my ebook, then let me know. Otherwise, we'll continue forward. And I have a meme here that I believe is legit. I can't confirm it, but it's handwritten and it came from the UK. Application for employment. I'm going to read it to you because it's probably hard to read where you are. I refer to the recent death of the technical manager at your company and hereby apply for the replacement of the deceased manager. Each time I apply for a job, I get a reply that there is no vacancy, but in this case, I have caught you red-handed, and you have no excuse because I even attended the funeral to be sure that he was truly dead and buried before applying. Attached to my letter is a copy of my CV and his death certificate. I don't suggest that you go about job search in this way, but I couldn't help but put it here because this is the perfect place for it. And I don't know what happened with this guy or whatever, but as soon as I saw this, I just laughed out loud. So as long as you're all getting the same reaction from it, then we are good to go. So any other thoughts, questions, or I would say any examples that you might have from your own experience related to some of the things that I brought up here tonight? And I guess I would say prior experience as opposed to immediate or current.
I don't know. It's just all getting shoveled in so quick. I can't comprehend it all right now. So
Like drinking out of a fire hose. Is that what you're telling me? Is that
yeah.
which is okay. This is okay. I mean, it's this is a condensed version of everything that I do
Yeah.
with my clients in great detail.
Yeah.
Okay, but if I did it any longer than this, you'd be here till 10 every night, and you don't want to do
Right.
that either. So Jeff, any thoughts?
No, it's just everything you're saying is great, spot on. I've already talked to probably 15 of that 25, so I'm gonna expand my list probably to 40 or 50 because I've already had over the last several weeks have had various different networking calls with old colleagues that I've worked with, people that left and moved on. So yeah, spot on with casting a wide net, so to speak.
Well, part of it is that, and part of it is approaching people. Um, I'm going to guess that you have a pretty good relationship with those that you've just described.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And it's all about how you approach it. And there are some people who are close enough to you that if you said, "Hey, yeah, I'd love to get your help with my job search. This is what happened recently, blah, blah, blah." But when you use advice, it changes the whole tone and manner of the conversation. Just that
Yeah.
one single word, substitute advice for help. And again, you've just changed the whole dynamic of the interaction. And that is extremely valuable, not just for the initial conversation, but if there's some follow-ups. Because then you're saying, "Hey, I know you told me about this situation and this individual or whatever. Is it, can I ask you another question about that?" Okay, as opposed to, "Can you give me more help?" All right. It
Right.
just, again,
Yeah.
it sets the whole um, the tenor of the conversation in a very positive and upbeat way, as opposed to looking to have somebody throw you a life raft.
Yeah, absolutely. No, no, spot on. I agree.
Okay.
I love that.
Okay. All right. Melody, John, Lilia, Mike, thoughts, questions? All right.
All good, Bill.
Okay. Well, we'll see you tomorrow night. 8 o'clock. I will send out the link again as soon as it shows up. And if there are thoughts or questions that you have during the day, just feel free to text me or send me an email, and we'll go from there. Okay. Good night, all.
Thank you. Good
Thank
See
night.
you
you,
tomorrow.
Ben.
All right. Take care.
Bye.